I'm Matt Miller.
And I'm Hannah Elliott, and this is Hot Pursuit.
All right, we are pretty excited. I'm definitely personally very excited. Ducati, I will admit, is one of my favorite brands. It's one of my favorite products. I've been riding them for 25 years now, and we have the CEO of Ducati.
Claudio Domenicali, not related to the head of Formula One.
Exactly.
It's a different Domenicali.
Yes, Stefano Domenicali, who did run Lamborghini and now runs F1. They're not related, but they're both like in the Motor Valley. And Formula One and Moto GP are going to be getting close.
This is huge.
Yeah,
I
it's
actually
massive.
think it's a really big deal.
Yeah, Liberty Media, which owns Formula One, is going to buy Dorna, and which runs Moto GP. So now the hope is that Moto GP can grow even close to the level of F1.
I mean, do you think that we're going to see weekends that have F1 and MotoGP races?
To me, that's way too much because I already, I'm watching free practice, I'm watching qualifying, I'm watching the sprint race.
It's a commitment.
Yeah, and so doing both would be hard. My father-in-law, he watches both. And
wow.
I don't even know how he does that on separate weekends.
Is he must be retired.
No, he's a professor of architecture in
Oh.
Pamplona. In any case, I think it's going to be a lot to put them both together. But we'll talk about that with Claudio as well as his bikes. And we've also asked him to tell us, give us a list of what he thinks are, I said the most beautiful cars or the best designed cars, but I think
I was shocked at his answer.
Yeah, he gives us a list of, I think, just cars that he wants in his garage, frankly.
I think so. Yeah. I think he's a little sensitive about the garage issue because that's private, but
right.
You do get the feeling he's got his eye on a few things.
Yes, but not the 250 GTO that I thought he was going to say. You know?
Right. I know.
We're also going to, you've driven the Ford F-250
King Ranch V8 diesel
with the high output diesel motor. So 6.7 liter power stroke, 1,200 pound-feet of torque.
I know.
I want to hear about your experiences with that. And then you've got a couple of cool stories on the terminal. Let's kick it off with the Ferrari story on the terminal. There's a mechanic who's incredibly well known, I think, certainly in LA. What's the deal with Donnie?
Yeah, so this was an interesting story. On April 1st, this Ferrari mechanic named Donnie Callaway, who is prominent in certain Ferrari circles, was arrested on multiple charges of felony theft, trafficking stolen property, forgery, and fraud. He was arrested in Arizona. Wow. There was something that sources were saying was a sting operation where he was selling a couple of Ferraris that did not allegedly belong to him. So this was a big deal because Callaway has been featured on Jay Leno's show. Matt Farah has sent his Countach and his Ferrari to Donnie. I actually spoke with Matt, and Matt's comment on the record was that he did feel Donnie gave him good service at a fair price. But obviously there's a lot here. And when we really dug into the story, we found out that Callaway has quite a long track record of what I will call legal skirmishes dating back to the 90s. So a very interesting story. He's currently in jail in Arizona, and there's a trial scheduled for August.
Wow. It's huge for, car geeks, especially if you listen to the Smoking Tire.
Sure.
You hear about him all the time.
And it's also, I think it's fascinating because it kind of shows that, hey, no matter if you're a very wealthy Ferrari owner, you always got to be on the lookout for mechanics, and it's everybody's...
especially if you're a wealthy Ferrari owner.
Right, and, it's all of us who dabble in classic cars or whatever have this nightmare scenario about dealing with a mechanic who's not on the up and up, or a mechanic who holds our cars and charges us a bunch of money to get out. I'm not saying that's what Donnie did. This is all alleged, but I'm just saying in general, in theory, that's like our worst nightmare, and it can happen to anyone, and it just really makes me think, man, you got to be careful about where you send your cars.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah. So very interesting story. I recommend people check that out. You can see it on Bloomberg.com. If you're a client, you can see it on the terminal. Just bio Hannah Elliott, 2 L's, 2 T's.
That's it.
I really want to get your take on the F-250 because you haven't told me. We text each other obviously and I call you sometimes, but you haven't told me anything about it. And my take on this big truck is that obviously it's a work truck, so it's meant for jobs. But I feel like all the torque makes it quite luxurious to drive. What do you think?
Yeah. So, okay, I have to say, my disclaimer in front of all of this is obviously I did not take it to a work site. I was not a contractor using the truck how it really should be used. So,
and it had the tremor pack. Did it have the tremor package?
Yes, it had everything. This is like a $100,000 truck. And I had fun. I think I did send you one photo, Matt, which was of me at Home Depot buying soil and, pretty flowers.
I saw Willow, I think, in the back.
Of course I put the dog in it. I mean, it's fun. I actually drove it to Riverside to look at some puppies out there. So, like,
puppies.
I know. I had it out and about. It seemed great. It's big. Yes, the torque is incredible, super fast, although I did not find it especially quick once you get up to, if you're trying to move from 45 to 50 miles an hour to 70 miles an hour, of course, I started instantly missing all my supercars and sports cars that I drive because this truck doesn't have that type of punch where you can hammer down from that speed. But from the line, I mean, I was just burning everyone. It kind of makes you drive like a jerk in a way. Completely. And it's fun. It sounds super cool. I loved driving it because obviously this skinny white chick is not what you expect to get out of that truck. And I'm very aware of that. But also, in a way, it wasn't so usable because I couldn't drive it to work because it didn't fit in the parking garage.
True. I have the same problem with Super Duty and heavy duty trucks.
And I had to park it up the street because it didn't fit in the driveway.
Yep.
So obviously
the turning radius is not fantastic.
Yeah, but I have to say the interior, here's the thing. The interior had a lot of interesting details like stitched snakes and this, etching and
I love the etched dash in the King Ranch.
Now,
it's so cool.
I had a friend in that truck and she thought it was damaged. She thought somehow it had been scratched. And I said, no, it's supposed to be like that. See, it looks like a pretty design. And then she saw it. But at first she thought it was just like some damage on the dashboard.
I can understand the initial glance. You think, someone just scraped this up. But when you look, it's incredible.
It is really ornate. It is really ornate. And, of course, it's nice that the back is huge. I mean, it's functional that you can put your lunch on the center console. It seems made to have a crew of guys with you. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, it's good fun. And, well, I'm glad you got to drive it.
I want to get in the Chevy, though.
Yes.
Now.
Yeah, you got to try the Silverado 2500 HD ZR2 with their high output Duramax.
Yeah.
And the Allison transmission.
I will say one more thing about this. I was not impressed with how the CarPlay and the infotainment synced with my phone. It was all over the place. I'm used to being in syncing with Mercedes technology, which is the most seamless, the fastest, and not to sound like a brat. I'm just saying that's what I cover. And so it was interesting to be in the Ford, and it just was not as quick, as intuitive. It just felt a little like a couple years old.
I do think their infotainment system, and this is the Achilles heel for so many car makers these days, leaves a lot to be desired. Even car makers that have achieved what I think is like near perfection, they then put out horrible. Like BMW was so great for a while, and now it's like so confusing.
I know.
It's like you think you don't need it, and frankly, I'd rather have a car or a bike without it. But if it's going to be there, it should be perfect.
That's the thing, because it starts to get a little bit like a gnat that just gets in your space and you just want to flick it away, but you can't avoid it.
You know what else drives me crazy is, and I think that I drove a King Ranch as well, and I didn't have any complaints about it this time. I think they used the Bang & Olufsen system, but across manufacturers, not focused on Ford, but across manufacturers, when they license these names, Bang & Olufsen or what's the one that Jeep...
Harman Kardon?
No. Well, they all sort of have Harman Kardon to start as the base system, and BMW as well.
An upgrade.
But the upgraded one on the Jeep is a Macintosh, right? Which is like, these are $20,000 amplifiers if you want to buy one for your house. And a lot of them have used Bose, obviously, in the past, and they never, the sound systems, it doesn't seem like the manufacturers are really trying their hardest.
I know. And the thing is, if you get an amazing sound system in, but the truck itself or the vehicle is still not on that level, like maybe there's some rattle or poor acoustics in general, poor sound deadening, some rattle. You can't get around that.
I don't know why manufacturers just don't spend the extra couple grand, put the top grade sound deadening and put really good drivers and amplifiers and cables and
cost more money.
I know, but some have done it. Like the Meridian in the Range Rover is amazing.
Yeah.
In any case, that's always been a pet peeve of mine. I finally want to ask you about Formula One before we get to Ducati, because you have a piece about how to do Formula One on a budget. Going to these races and living this life is so expensive that most of us, and also I prefer sometimes to watch it on TV, but if you do want to hang with the crowd, at the Grand Prix, can you do it on a budget?
Yes, you can if you are careful about how you define budget. And I think, I agree with you. First of all, I myself wouldn't be spending my own personal money to go to most of these races. It's really expensive. I go because it's part of my job, but you're so right. And I don't think it's unfair that a lot of Americans just hear Formula One and think automatically, this is too expensive. This is elitist. They imagine Monaco in the 70s or something. And part of that is not wrong. But there are ways that if you decide this is going to be our special thing and we want to do Formula One, there are ways certainly that you can save money. I mean, the biggest, most obvious one is, and this is going to maybe hurt a little bit, but don't go on race day. Go for the qualifying rounds and the practice rounds, because tickets for those are far less expensive, but you still get the bulk of the atmosphere. You still get to see cars going around a track. You still get to see drivers. You'll still get a lot of it, but it will save you hundreds of dollars in tickets alone and passes and all that. I know that's a controversial thing. No,
but actually, I think it's a great idea because, I don't know about F1, but if I go to Moto GP on just for free practice or qualifying, it's less crowded, it's easier for me to move around, and I have a much better chance of seeing pilots or seeing mechanics and actually talking to people, getting my picture taken, because, it's not the huge mob.
Completely. And I have to say, at the Jeddah race, I was actually there on qualifying, and I've had so much fun. And you're right, the crowds are far less crazy, and you just kind of feel like an insider, which is cool.
Yeah, true.
I like that.
And then you get to watch the race on TV at your hotel, and it's much better. I mean, obviously the sound and the feeling of the engines is intense, but you get that in qualifying, and then
you do.
Watching the race is much better on TV because you can actually see, you're not at one corner.
And I love hearing the commentary, and that's really how you learn. When you're able, it's like the old guys who would go to the Dodger games with radio earpieces, listening to commentary, but they're sitting in the seats, but they're sitting in the cheap seats. But I mean, to me, that's actually more interesting because you get a higher level perspective, while some of the atmosphere.
I agree with you.
Yeah.
100%. I would never have thought about it, but you're right.
Yeah. So, and the other thing I would just say, on the idea of a budget is, obviously local races that are closer to you are probably going to be cheaper. For instance, if you're in Los Angeles, you've got Austin, but you've also got Vegas, and then you've also got Mexico City, which the flight actually to Mexico City might be cheaper than, a flight to Montreal or obviously to England. So really be careful about which race you choose, and don't assume that Monaco is the most expensive race. It's actually not ticket wise. So yeah, it pays to do your research and homework.
I think apropos our next guest, it makes sense to segue in from F1 to MotoGP and from MotoGP to the reigning world champions. I've known Claudio for probably, I don't know, over a decade at least, maybe close to 2. I've obviously been a Ducatisti for at least 2 decades, more like 3. I got my first Monster in 1999.
I actually learned to ride motorcycles on a Monster too. So we have a lot in common, and it was a very great experience, I have to say. So permanently endeared me to Ducati.
And Claudio's been there even longer, right? Claudio, you started in 1991, is that correct?
Yeah, you know a lot. Yes.
I heard that you don't want to talk about Liberty, but we obviously have to ask a little bit about MotoGP. And
this is exciting.
First off, I've been rooting for Ducati and MotoGP for many years, and it hasn't been since Casey Stoner that we were successful until Pecco, and now you're defending a world championship for a 3rd year, or the possibility of a 3rd year. What is it like to be not just on top, but to absolutely dominate in the sport?
Yeah, it's very nice, I have to admit. And actually, I've been quite a long path to get there. Because, you know, with Casey, we won the championship quick, but then it was more complicated and many years difficult. But finally, we were able to put together the proper team of people. Rider make a big difference, but it's the whole team. When you're not doing once, but you do twice, and then actually you're still, even in the beginning of the 3rd championship, like we are now, always fight for the podium position or even for the win, means there is a system. It's not just a coincidence or actually a lucky year.
Claudio, I'm so curious, you know, we're talking about dominance in a racing series, and, you know, I follow and cover Formula One a lot. I'm curious about how closely you relate to like a Red Bull that is so dominant in F1 right now. Are there parallels between your dominance in MotoGP and Red Bull's dominance in Formula One?
Similar in a way, for sure, in terms of result. Actually, what we can say maybe is that in MotoGP there are more than 2 Ducatis. So actually, the races there is more competition now, and so it's a lot of more uncertainty. And on the other side, in terms of technological position of our bike, it's for sure very good. I have to say that Formula One, the car makes maybe a bit of a difference, more difference. And so once you get the aerodynamic right or the package right, for the other are very complicated. In bikes are closer one with the other. So difference are less. And so competition is very close.
What do you think about the fact that the European brands are doing so well? Obviously, Ducati, you know, is winning all the races, but KTM is doing well, and Aprilia shows a lot of promise. At the same time, Honda is doing badly, Yamaha's doing badly, Suzuki quit. What's that all about? The Japanese brands are all at the bottom all of a sudden, and the European brands are all at the top.
So I think there has been a kind of, in the last 5-10 years, so it's not coming just in the last year, it's been a very strong innovation stream that I think Ducati made better than anyone else. And then some other follow us more closely, and some other find more difficult to follow. And the bikes technology for a long time have been quite conventional. And some brands or some factories or some companies are very good in refining. And so you keep refining and doing it a bit better and a bit better, but in a concept which is very almost the same. While if you take a picture of a bike of 10 years ago and a picture of a bike of today, a Ducati of today, it's a completely different animal.
What is your thought about growing the popularity of MotoGP, especially in the U.S.? I know there's, I think, one American team racing, but, you know, not to bring it back to Formula One again, but we've seen, of course, F1 really take off in the past few years. Do you think about, we should try to do a similar move with MotoGP? Would that benefit it, or is that not really part of your consideration on a day-to-day?
No, I think it's a fantastic opportunity. We are mega happy about this thing of Liberty Media taking a kind of the global control of MotoGP. Still, of course, is not in action. It will take time, and then there are still some validation process. But for sure, the potential of a sport which is so spectacular like MotoGP in US is dramatic. So we are mega excited about that because we are so much invested into MotoGP, and we are very well known and recognized as the leading technological brand. And so the benefit for our brand, for Ducati in US, of a growing popularity of MotoGP, going above and beyond just the community of the hardcore bikers, but getting wider, it's very, very interesting for us.
I should point out that Claudio obviously is the CEO of Ducati, the whole company, so he's thinking about other things besides racing. But if I'm not mistaken, Claudio, you came up through Corsa, right? You came up and ran the racing division before you took over the broader company. So you're pretty invested in the racing side of things.
Yeah, actually, we founded Ducati Corsa in 1999, and I was in the notary studio, actually signing the document of when Ducati Corsa was born, and we created that company in order to enter into MotoGP. It's already more than 20 years ago, and then I was managing director of Ducati Corsa for the first part of my career in that days. So yes, I'm very committed to racing, but actually racing and Ducati are very committed anyhow. It's part of the passion and the reason why Ducatisti are Ducatisti. This kind of getting into a club, which is not only about having a motorcycle, but having a much broader sense of community and much broader sense of belonging.
I'm so curious. You've mentioned leading the forefront of technology a few times, and of course we know that's true and accurate. And I've also heard you say in other conversations, that electric is the future. Can we talk a little bit about electric motorcycles? Do we need one? Who's asking for one? Is it just part of belonging to a larger group that is focused on EVs? Where is Ducati right now with that conversation?
So I think that EV two wheels, how we do intend in Ducati, which means emotional two wheels. So it's not talking about mobility, but it's talking about entertainment. It's still a little bit a question mark because of a number of reasons. Reason number one is the sound, which actually is very big part of the emotion.
That's still a big consideration, it sounds like.
Riding a motorcycle. And actually, when you come to racing, for example, you come to see a race, the sound of the bikes passing by. It's a very strong part of entertainment, So the same is when you ride the bike through canyon. So, and then the other part is, apart from the sound, the global behavior of the bike, which has to do a lot with the weight. And so then there has to be solved the compromise between range and the weight of the bike. And so when you are on four wheels, it's much easier because actually you can easily afford to get a bit of a heavier car without really being a drama. And then most of the EV fan actually focus on the 0 to 100 or 0 to 60 mile an hour if you are US. And then you get a fantastic performance in acceleration with four-wheel drive, kind of maybe 500 kilowatt engine. But still when you are going through corner, it's more complicated. So a number of things. Nevertheless, we wanted to be part of the game. And so and technology is moving quite quick. So even the battery are changing the performance quite quick. And so what it was possible 5 years ago, now it's for sure the forefront of technology have moved. And what it will be possible in 5 years is even different. So this is the reason why we enter Moto E, which actually, I'm not sure you are aware, it's kind of a full EV race series, which actually
like
is
Formula
run,
E.
It's like Formula E, but there is a difference because it's run by the same promoter. So instead of being run on a different circuit, and Formula E is mainly in city circuit, this is run by Dorna and is together with Moto GP in all European round. So all European round of Moto GP, you get also the Moto E races. And we've been asked by the promoter to develop motorcycles. So it's a single make series. So we have taken the challenge to invest the money and resource needed to develop what is currently the most performing and advanced two-wheel vehicle when it is on the racetrack. So a lot of brands are kind of making proposals, let's put it this way. But then when you have to come to a point that the bike really develop performance, and it's a really emotional product, the Ducati Moto E, now it's on the top. And so we learn a lot. We learn a lot in how to play with the motor, which actually the electrical motor is a very different animal. And then you need to get to be an expert on motor, on inverter, on chemistry of the battery, on software, how you play with all the software. And actually, we build all of them in-house. We hire people. And so we have a building not just a product, but we are building knowledge.
In your opinion, is it going to be easier to evoke emotion and passion out of a motorcycle run on e-fuels rather than a motorcycle with an electric motor?
When the e-fuel is available, definitely yes. So the main problem with e-fuel is that they are still not completely accepted. So there are discussions going on. Let's say for the European community, there is kind of a ban talking about cars, not bikes, at 2035 for internal combustion engine. But there is an option that are on the table. They are debating that the cars will be accepted if they are run on e-fuel. But it's not all it completely validated. So the oil company, even they are not completely now moving into setting up the plan, because then in all this discussion, then you need companies to take decision to make investment. And so, but definitely yes, the e-fuel is a fantastic solution that would get both the emotion and the CO2 neutral. So this is the reason why, for example, you can use enclosed environment like MotoGP or Formula One. And then I think would be a fantastic solution also for a high-end supercar and for high-performance motorcycle.
I want to talk a little bit about the consumer products that you have. I'm obviously a big fan and have owned many Ducatis in my life. I never have owned one with a single cylinder, but I'm looking forward to doing that soon because you just put out the Hypermotard 698 mono. I remember talking to you 5 or 6 or 7 years ago in Frankfurt, and you were telling me that you were doing supermoto with your son, and you were having so much fun that you wanted to make a smaller bike on which that was possible. Now you've done it. Tell us about this, and what else have you got up your sleeve?
So that you remember that, so that means that it was not lying, that became real.
Yeah, it's exciting. I mean, I can't wait to ride this thing. I've already watched the videos and it sounds amazing. But it's also cool that you develop bikes that way. Like you got into it, you were having fun on something else, and you thought Ducati can do this, and now
it's organic.
Yeah, it's really cool.
I think you touch most probably one of the core points of the reason why Ducati exists, and why we're doing okay. Because really, most of us, not just me, most of us are really enthusiasts about the product. And most of us, we are actually enjoying the product ourselves. So it's a kind of, it's a fantastic opportunity to take the technology which is available and then to think about the future and then to think about what could be exciting, And we do things that we like doing and we are doing in a way that actually it's so well connected with our most passionate client that actually resonate with them, and then finally they buy it, and so we can make out of a living, and the company is successful also financially. We ended up the last 2 years with the first time in our history going above 1 billion euro in revenue, So we have grown the company to a decent size. For actually when I joined the company 30 years ago, it was a small artisanal style manufacturer. We were below 2,000 bike a year, and now we are in the range of 60,000. So we're not big, because still Ducati will remain a specialty for people that love very kind of high level, high quality, high technology product, and they're willing to commit for the effort on having one. But it's very interesting that we really are very much technical driven. So we are connected with technology. We are kind of a bit of technology geek, if you want, So we either it is software or it is how the engine is made. We are very excited about that. But on the other side, we are not doing for the sake of doing. So we are very often on the road with our prototypes and bikes from competitor, and we compare them. And actually, we want to really we consider ourselves as a kind of we have this fantastic brand in end, and we have a group of passionate people outside that resonate with us. And so there are a lot of new things coming, which of course I will not tell you anything about. But be reassured, we are in a the world is complicated, because actually geopolitics is complicated. So we are not kind of it's always difficult, but we are with a so close link with our shareholder now that is making possible for us to continue to increase investment into new products. So not only the electric, but actually we are studying a lot of different things, and also expanding the product range. You have seen we are entering also motocross, which will be another very exciting chapter for US, for example, because there is a lot of passion there, from supercross to actually also a number of cross-country version and a lot of stuff. And a lot of young Americans start on two wheels just with an off-road. So it's for sure another...
I have a question about that, Claudio. That just brings to mind, in my limited experience and exposure, it seems like there is really a difference between the European motorcycle rider and the American motorcycle rider. How would you describe the difference in what you're seeing between riders in Europe and the US?
Yeah, maybe kind of in Europe, the motorcycle is also a daily commuter thing, in a way. While on US is pure entertainment, that's for sure. And so you find the motorcycle in the city in Europe, and of course, a lot of people in Europe use the motorcycle over the weekends, and they use it for touring, or they use going on the racetrack. But also you go to Milan or Rome, or even Paris or even Barcelona, you find a lot of bikes into the city, while in US is a bit more difficult. Some city, yes, maybe you are in San Francisco and you find them, or even somewhere in New York, but actually in the middle of the country it's more complicated, more difficult.
And talk to us a little bit about the Scrambler sub-brand. I'm curious how much that has contributed to this big growth that you've seen, number one, and then also how has it affected the very aspirational image of Ducati? Obviously, Scrambler was created to make Ducati more accessible to more people. How has that changed the dynamic of the brand image, but then also the just straight growth?
Yeah, I think that Scrambler has been a nice opportunity, because it gave us the potential of reinvent an icon that we had in our past. That was exactly Ducati Scrambler, that have been for many young people in the 60s, have been a kind of 60s and the 70s, have been a kind of really something to dream about. And we could generate a part of our company that was not so much committed to performance in a way, So being interesting for also an audience which is much more lifestyle and is much more about customizing your product and enjoying riding without somehow the stress of being a fast rider in a way, which is a little bit of what happened when you are on a Ducati, But on the other side, it did not change the positioning of the red brand. So the red Ducati remained the red Ducati, which is style, sophistication, and performance. So which are our core value, very clearly embedded in the body of any one of us here in the company. And so it's been a nice extension that gave us the possibility to have new people joining the Ducati family, because yes, you enter as a scramblerista, but still you enter the Ducati family.
Is that the word for it? Scramblerista.
Yeah, scramblerista, yes, with the American accent, scramblerista. Yes.
It's a hard R.
Hey, I want to know, Claudia, I want to know about your path to Ducati. Like, how did you get into, motorbikes? And I mean, for those listening that don't know, Claudio is a very fast rider. So all the executives are telling me, like, he's one of the fastest guys at the track every time I go there.
Wow.
And how did you get into, because I know you're an engineer, but you also care a hell of a lot about design and beauty and, I guess that's Italian. But how did you grow up and get into this and stay there for so long?
Yeah, it's a lot of questions. I love the point. And so actually, how have we managed to remain for so long? Actually, I always tell a joke, which actually when I joined the company, I was engineer number 4, where only 3 engineers when I joined. So I usually tell that I just needed to kill 3 or to fire 3, and then I became the boss. So which actually is more complicated and difficult now, because we are more than 350 engineers. So one is joining now, it gets more difficult. But it's pretty straightforward, basically. I was a type of a guy in that, born in 1965. And so in that 80s, in the 80s, everyone here was very passionate in this Motor Valley about bikes, car, everything is fast, And so I had this passion. And when you are in your 15, 16-year-old, there is something which is in common, unless you are very special, and there was not anything special, that you are without money. So there is no money around. So the only way to be fast on something is to buy a bike, because the euro times fun factor, it's unbeatable, the one for the bike. If you want to really enjoy being fast with the car, you need to spend in the hundreds of thousands. If you want to enjoy with a bike, you're on the tens of thousands. So that was the thing. So I got into bikes, but I was passionate about cars, boat, whatever, which I'm still are.
That's good, because we want to ask you about cars as well. And I know you're president of the Motor Valley Development Association. So, it's amazing when people go and understand that in one place, basically, is Ducati, Lamborghini, Maserati, Ferrari. They're all right there around.
It's a fertile crescent of automaking.
It's pretty unbelievable. So, we wanted to ask your take as an Italian, as the CEO of Ducati, and as the head of the Motor Valley Development Association. What do you think are the most beautiful or the best designed cars?
Iconic.
Yeah.
For the ages.
So why don't we kick that off? When you think of the most beautiful cars, the best designed cars, the most most passionate, timeless cars, what do you think?
Yeah, okay. If you have to pick just one, actually, it's quite obvious, and it's the 911.
Wow.
In my opinion.
Because that's a shocker.
I didn't expect that either.
You said it's timeless, So actually, I think they have a philosophy, which actually is the only one, because they gave me the brief, because they made actually proper good homework. And so I just wrote down 3 cars that I love.
Well, let's start. Let's focus on the 911 first, because, of course, the shape, the silhouette is timeless. And I imagine that you've had a chance to drive a few of them now, since you're all under the Volkswagen umbrella.
Well, do you own any?
Tell us about your experience with 911 with Porsche.
Not yet, but I have a plan. Okay, so
nice.
I'm building a garage. That's the first start.
Does the plan involve modern 911s or older air-cooled variety?
Modern 911. I'm a type of a guy that like the modern stuff, but I consider that car in special is the one that have been able to be continuously different by remaining the same, which is typical of an icon, And by the way, they've been able also in terms of technology to make the car fantastic. In the current 992 911 GT3, it's a mega car, and they keep making that even with a manual gearbox. So it is kind of a Swiss mechanical swatch. This still being incredible emotional and never nostalgic. So this, I think, is the reference. But if then I put down the other two cars that I think I really like, especially, which is the Huracan STO, which I think that we made together the Street Fighter, and I think that this car was a very extreme one, and the Ferrari 296.
Those are very interesting answers, because the 911, the Huracan STO, and the 296 are not the wildest and craziest top-of-the-line models in each of those portfolios. In fact, they're more usable. They're considered more of the Swiss Army knife, I mean, relatively speaking. So that's very interesting that you mentioned those.
Yeah, I didn't thought about that, but you pick a real nice thing, which is really my way of, it's what I like, it's my personal choice. I'm not saying which are the best one, but if you want the most horsepower, it's not this car, okay? But
yes,
they are the one that are in a way, the GT3, it's the most sporty in a way, but still you can do everyday usability.
The Multistrada, for example, in my eyes is the perfect, like if I could only have one bike, it would be the Multistrada. It's so much fun to ride on the track. You can do cross-country trips with it. It truly is like every street. Off-road stuff is possible. Obviously, tires need to be switched. But I would say the weakness probably is kind of the navigation sort of hub, right? The software is the problem there. How hard is that to crack?
Yeah, it's not dramatically hard, but let's say we in this product that's not our strongest part. Let's put it this way. So we have a plan, and for sure software it's very, very relevant, and I completely agree with you and understand what is the need. So we are working hard on that in order to have on the future not just a fantastic proposal in terms of engine delivery, drivability and everything, but also all the connectivity part will be on stage with all the integration that is needed and how our clients are used to.
It's the best seller too. Isn't it the best seller of all the bikes?
Yeah, it is. And actually it's keeping growing. And it's a little bit of, Ducati was born around the Monster and the 916. So let's say sporty naked and a sporty faired bike. Actually, now we have different product on the model range, and Multistrada itself, it's a very important pillar because you are an expert. So you understand that with this bike, you have to pick only one. That's a Multistrada. Multistrada is my personal bike. It's my favorite if I have to pick only one. Because really, you can use it as a sport bike, but it's very comfortable. You can do long range. You can carry a passenger. You can use in a city. You can use off-road, as you said. And actually, we, fun enough, we still have the image of being a Moto GP company. So we find it difficult to explain and convince that you can take a Multistrada with a proper tire doing a proper off-road. But still, when we do comparative tests, when journalists do comparative tests, on the off-road, we win most of the comparative tests, even against other brands that are really supposed to do much better. But we took seriously. And so, and I'm a strongly believer of taking the time of doing things. So we are now on the 4th generation of Multistrada. More and more people enter into that, because actually there are more people that actually trust us, and they believe that you can be on a Ducati in a comfortable way. You can be on a Ducati in a longer range way, and you can be even off-road. And so the family is keeping growing, and we are keeping investing. We just, every year we release different versions. Sometimes we go more in the direction of being more long range or off-road, like we did with the Rally recently last year with a 30-liter fuel tank. And on the other side, we release at the same time the Multistrada RS, which is the most sporty with the Desmo system and 180 horsepower. So we continuously try to keep the center of gravity of the brand stable. So if sometimes we enter with the model which is more touring, then we want to reinforce our position on the upper part with more sporty version in order to keep the center of gravity stable.
Claudio, it's been awesome spending time with you. Thank you for
thank you so much
committing this hour to us. Really appreciate it.
It's been a pleasure, Matt, also my side. And let's keep in touch. It's been wonderful talk again with you. And also, Hannah, I mean, I've been impressed, to be honest. You're a strong connoisseur. So actually, I would love to meet. First time, actually, I'm in the US or actually are in Europe. Both of you, actually, it would be nice if we can meet and maybe have a chat and a dinner together would be fantastic.
That
would
be
love
great.
Nothing more. Thank you.
I'll try and set that up, Claudio. Look forward to seeing you again. So that was Claudio Domenicali telling us a lot about everything, I guess.
He's interesting. And I do want to go have a proper Italian meal with him.
I highly recommend World Ducati Week. It's an incredible gathering in Rimini, Italy, of Ducatisti from around the world. Obviously, the food is delicious, but the coolest thing is you can ride with the group, and you would probably be able to ride next to Claudio, and you do go on like an hour-long ride around the area, which is so much fun.
That's really cool. I just had a vision of Ducati making a sidecar. I don't know why. Can you imagine?
I feel like
that'd be so funny.
I've never seen a Ducati sidecar.
No,
but
me neither.
If you ever go to Bologna, you can check out the Ducati Museum, and there may be
maybe
something
there's
like
one
that
there.
Yeah. All right, well, that's it for this week. We'll be back next week, same time, same place, and definitely shoot us an email because we read, we respond, and we try and when people give us suggestions, we try and incorporate them into the program. What's our email address?
The email address is hotpursuit@bloomberg.net.
Hotpursuit@bloomberg.net. Awesome. All right.
Yeah.
That's excellent. I'm Matt Miller.
I'm Hannah Elliott, and this is Bloomberg.